Captain Kim Tae stood at the bridge window of the exploration ship Harmony, watching space stretch endlessly before them. They had been traveling for 3 months, searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth. The mission was supposed to be routine: map new star systems, collect samples, maybe find some microbes on distant planets. Nobody expected to actually meet aliens. The peaceful silence was broken when 3 massive ships suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They materialized like ghosts, their crystal-like hulls catching starlight and throwing it back in rainbow patterns. Each ship was twice the size of the Harmony, with strange geometric designs that hurt to look at directly. They moved with an elegance that human ships could never match, gliding through space as smoothly as fish through water. Communications Officer Park Min jumped in his seat as alarms started blaring across the bridge. His fingers flew over the control panel, trying to make sense of the readings. "Captain, we're getting a transmission. It's not like anything in our databases." Kim Tae felt his heart racing but kept his voice steady. "Put it through, Park." The main screen flickered and displayed something that made the entire bridge crew gasp. The creature looked like a nightmare version of a praying mantis, standing upright on 2 powerful legs. Its forearms moved independently, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Most disturbing were its eyes, dozens of compound lenses that seemed to look in every direction at once. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "Primitive vessel, you have stumbled into sacred dominion space. Your kind does not belong here. Surrender your ship immediately, or we will turn you into space." The dust. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet humming of the ship's systems. Kim Tae could feel his crew looking at him, waiting for orders. He had trained for many scenarios, but first contact with hostile aliens wasn't one of them. Still, he was the captain, and these were his people to protect. He straightened his uniform and stepped forward. "This is Captain Kim Tae of the Terran. Vessel Harmony. We are explorers from Earth. We come in peace and seek only friendship and knowledge." The alien's mandibles clicked together in rapid succession, creating a sound like breaking glass. If Kim Tae didn't know better, he would have sworn the creature was laughing at them. Friendship? Knowledge? The alien's voice dripped with contempt. "Look at your pathetic ship. Look at your weak bodies. You are nothing but insects that learned to fly between stars. Commander Vexkari, charge the plasma cannons. Let us show these primitives what real power looks like." Suddenly, beams of brilliant blue energy shot out from the alien ships. They struck the Harmony's hull with tremendous force, causing the entire ship to shake violently. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the bridge, and several crew members were thrown from their chairs. But Kim Tae remained standing, his hands gripping the captain's chair. His calm voice cut through the chaos. "All stations, implement defensive protocols. Engineering, give me a damage report. Weapons, prepare to see. Return fire if necessary." The alien commander seemed surprised that the human ship was still in one piece. What he didn't understand was that humans had been building things to survive for thousands of years. The Harmony might look simple compared to the elegant alien vessels, but it was built tough. Every plate of armor, every system backup, every safety measure had been designed by people who knew that space wanted to kill them. As the ship's systems came back online, Kim Tae realized this was no longer just a peaceful exploration mission. Humanity's first contact with alien life had just become a fight for survival. The alien plasma cannons fired again and again, each blast hot enough to melt through mountains of solid rock. The beams struck the Harmony with tremendous force, lighting up the ship's hull like a Christmas tree. Blue and white energy cascaded across the metal surface, creating spectacular light shows that would have been beautiful if they weren't so deadly. Commander Vexkari watched from his command ship, his forearms gesturing wildly as he barked orders. His compound eyes tracked every shot, expecting to see the human vessel break apart at any moment. These weapons had destroyed entire fleets of enemy ships. They had turned asteroid fortresses into glowing slag. No ship this small should be able to survive even one direct hit, but the Harmony kept flying. The alien commander's mandibles clicked frantically as he studied his weapon readouts. "This cannot be happening. Our plasma cannons generate temperatures hotter than most stars. That primitive bucket of metal should be nothing but vapor by now." His weapons officer, a nervous creature with 6 eyes, stammered a response. "Sir, our scanners show the human ship is still intact. Their hull appears to be absorbing and dispersing our energy blasts." Inside the Harmony, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency despite the chaos around them. Sparks flew from damaged consoles and the lights flickered with each impact. But nobody panicked. Engineering Chief Lee So's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. "Captain, hull integrity is down to 78%, but we're holding together. The reactive armor is doing its job. It's spreading the heat across the entire hull instead of letting it concentrate in one spot. Our fusion reactor is running smooth and steady." Captain Kim Tae studied the tactical display, watching the pattern of incoming fire. The alien weapons were incredibly powerful, but they fired in predictable sequences. It was like fighting an opponent who telegraphed every punch. These aliens had probably never faced an enemy that could survive their first attack, so they had never learned to adapt their tactics. "Helm Officer Han B," Kim called out, "activate evasive pattern Delta. Let's show our new friends what human engineering is really capable of." Han B's fingers danced across her controls, and suddenly the Harmony began moving like no ship the aliens had ever seen. Instead of flying in straight lines like most spacecraft, it twisted and spun through space in seemingly random patterns. Small thrusters all over the hull fired in complex sequences, making the ship dance between the plasma beams like a leaf in the wind. The Dominion gunners tried desperately to track their target, but the human ship moved in ways that defied their understanding of space combat. It would suddenly dive downward, then spiral upward, then flip completely around while continuing forward. The movements looked chaotic, but they were actually carefully calculated to make the ship nearly impossible to hit. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Every battle, every conflict, every skirmish had taught them something new about survival. The Harmony wasn't just built to explore space. It was built by people who knew that the universe was a dangerous place filled with things that wanted to kill them. The ship's armor wasn't just metal plates bolted together. It was a sophisticated system of overlapping layers designed to absorb, redirect, and dissipate energy attacks. The hull could literally heal itself by shifting damaged sections away from critical areas. Commander Vexkari watched in growing horror as his supposedly superior weapons continued to miss their target. For the first time in his military career, he began to wonder if the Dominion had made a terrible mistake. Captain Kim Tae took a deep breath and opened a communication channel one last time. His voice carried across space to the alien ships, calm and measured, despite the plasma fire still lighting up his hull. He genuinely hoped these aliens would listen to reason, even though their actions so far suggested otherwise. "Dominion vessels, this is your final opportunity for peaceful resolution. Cease your attack immediately, and we can sit down like civilized beings to discuss whatever misunderstanding has occurred here. There's no need for anyone else to get hurt today." The response came back almost instantly. Commander Vexkari's voice, filled with rage and disbelief. His mandibles clicked so rapidly they sounded like machine gun fire. "You insignificant insects dare to make demands of the mighty Dominion? You should be begging for the mercy of a quick death. All ships, concentrate. Fire! Turn that pathetic scrap heap into cosmic dust." Kim Tae closed his eyes for a moment, feeling genuinely sad that diplomacy had failed. He had hoped that any species advanced enough for interstellar travel would be reasonable enough for conversation. Apparently, he was wrong. When he opened his eyes again, his expression had changed completely. The peaceful explorer was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous. He turned to his tactical officer, a young man who had been quietly preparing weapon systems throughout the entire encounter. "Hyunjae, you are hereby authorized to return fire. Show them what happens when you corner a human." Yoonjae had been waiting for this moment. His fingers flew across his console, bringing online systems that the aliens had never detected. "Aye. Captain, weapons hot, target locked, make it count, you said?" "Yes, sir, I intend to." Something remarkable happened to the Harmony. Panels all along the hull began sliding back with mechanical precision, revealing hidden compartments that had been invisible to the alien scanners. What emerged from these spaces looked nothing like the elegant energy weapons the Dominion used. These were crude, brutal-looking devices that seemed almost primitive by galactic standards, but appearances can be deceiving. The railgun turrets that rose from the ship's surface were marvels of human engineering. Instead of using exotic energy or mysterious alien technology, they relied on simple electromagnetic physics pushed to its absolute limits. Massive superconducting coils generated magnetic fields powerful enough to accelerate small pieces of metal to incredible speeds. "Firing tungsten penetrators," Yunjie announced with grim satisfaction. The railguns didn't produce pretty light shows like the alien plasma cannons. There were no colorful beams or dramatic explosions. Instead, they fired chunks of tungsten metal, one of the densest, hardest materials humans had ever discovered. Each slug was no bigger than a coffee mug, but it moved at a significant fraction of light speed. The aliens had built their entire military philosophy around energy weapons and energy shields. Their defensive systems were designed to deflect plasma beams, absorb laser fire, and redirect particle streams. They had never encountered an enemy that simply threw rocks at them, really fast rocks. The tungsten slugs tore through the Dominion energy shields like they weren't even there. The shields simply had no way to stop solid matter moving at such incredible velocity. The first projectile struck Commander Vexkari's flagship directly amidships. The alien vessel, which had seemed so elegant and powerful just moments before, cracked open like an egg hit with a hammer. Atmosphere vented into space in brilliant streams as the ship's hull split along stress lines that its designers had never imagined could fail. Inside the dying alien ship, emergency alarms screamed as Vexkari realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare had just become obsolete. Commander Vexkari stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. Red warning lights flashed across his bridge as damage reports flooded in from across his fleet. Ships that had dominated entire star systems were being torn apart by weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum. His flagship was venting atmosphere from 3 different hull breaches, and 2 of his escort vessels were already drifting dead in space. This wasn't how space combat was supposed to work. For thousands of years, the Dominion had fought wars with sophisticated energy weapons, complex shield matrices, and elegant tactical maneuvers. Battles were won through superior technology and careful planning. But these humans were throwing all established rules out the window, fighting with a savage directness that made no sense. "Sir, we need to adapt our formation," urged his tactical officer, a nervous creature whose 6 eyes darted between multiple displays. "Their weapons are unlike anything in our databases." Vexkari's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Deploy all fighter swarms immediately. Overwhelm them with numbers. Surely their primitive point defense systems cannot handle a coordinated assault." The Dominion fighters launched from their carrier ships like angry hornets, hundreds of sleek craft that moved with crystalline grace. Each fighter was a work of art, equipped with miniaturized plasma cannons and protected by personal energy shields. They had never lost an engagement against any known enemy, but the harmony was ready for them. Launch bays that the aliens hadn't even detected suddenly opened along the human ship's hull. What emerged were craft that looked brutal and functional compared to the elegant alien fighters. These human interceptors had no smooth curves or artistic flourishes. They were angular, heavily armored, and covered in weapon pods that looked like they meant business. Pilot Choibo strapped herself into the cockpit of her fighter, her hands moving across familiar controls with practiced ease. She had been playing combat flight simulators since she was 8 years old, spending countless hours in virtual battles that pushed the limits of human reflexes and tactical thinking. What the aliens didn't know was that human children grew up playing war games that were more realistic than actual combat training in most galactic militaries. "This is Wolf Leader," she announced over the communication system. "All fighters, engage at will. Show them how Earth's children play." Choibo's fighter screamed into the middle of the alien formation, her railgun already spinning up to firing speed. Unlike the aliens who flew in perfect formations and followed predictable attack patterns, she moved like a wild animal. Her fighter twisted and rolled through space in seemingly random directions, making her nearly impossible to target. The alien pilots tried to lock onto her with their plasma weapons, but she was already somewhere else by the time they fired. She dove under a group of enemy fighters, rolled inverted, and came up behind them with her railgun blazing. Tungsten slugs tore through alien hulls like paper, sending debris spinning through space. "These humans fight like they have nothing to lose," whispered Vexkari's tactical officer, watching the battle unfold on the main screen, but that wasn't quite right. The humans weren't fighting like they had nothing to lose. They were fighting like they had everything to lose. Every pilot, every gunner, every crew member knew that they were humanity's first line of defense against an alien threat. If they failed here, these creatures might decide to visit Earth next. What the Dominion couldn't understand was that humans had been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. Every generation had faced enemies who wanted to destroy them, and every generation had learned new ways to survive. Human military tactics weren't developed in peaceful academies or theoretical war colleges. They were forged in the fires of actual combat. The human fighters didn't just attack the aliens, they adapted to them. When the Dominion pilots tried energy beam attacks, the humans scattered and reformed. When they attempted coordinated maneuvers, the humans broke formation and fought as individuals. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos that the aliens simply couldn't counter. The surviving Dominion ships limped away from the battlefield, their elegant hulls scarred and burning. What had started as a routine patrol to intimidate primitive aliens had turned into a complete disaster. Half of Commander Vexkari's fleet was either destroyed or drifting helplessly in space, while the single human ship continued on its course as if nothing had happened. Vexkari stood alone in his damaged command center, dreading the conversation he was about to have. Emergency power flickered overhead, and the smell of burnt electronics filled the air. His communication officer, nursing a broken arm, managed to establish a hyperspace link to Dominion Central Command. The bridge suddenly filled with ghostly, blue light as holographic projections materialized around him. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy appeared as if they were standing in the same room, their various alien forms creating an intimidating circle. Each represented a different species that had joined the Dominion, and each had conquered dozens of star systems. At the center of the group stood Supreme Overlord Kexathara, a creature that looked like a massive snake crossed with a dragon. Her scales shimmered with an inner light, and her eyes glowed like burning coals. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had ruled for centuries. "Commander Vexkari," she hissed, her serpentine body coiling and uncoiling. Invisible agitation. "Explain to me how a routine patrol mission resulted in the loss of half your fleet. You were defeated by primitives who had never even left their own star system before today." Vexkari's compound eyes looked down at the deck plating. In his entire military career, he had never experienced such humiliation. "My Supreme Overlord, these humans possess weapons and tactics unlike anything in our databases. They fight with a brutality and unpredictability that defies all known military doctrine." "Weapons," interrupted Science Counselor Mortek, a tall creature with multiple tentacles instead of arms. "What kind of weapons could primitives possibly possess that our advanced technology cannot counter?" "Kinetic weapons, Lord Mortek. They fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Our energy shields were completely useless against them. And their ship designation, according to their own records, reads as Light Exploration Cruiser. Yet it fought with the capability of our heaviest dreadnoughts." The holographic council members exchanged glances that crossed species barriers. They had all seen the battle footage, but hearing it described made the implications even more terrifying. Mortek's tentacles writhed as he accessed the combat data directly through his neural implants. Fascinating and disturbing. Their technology appears crude by our standards. No exotic matter, no quantum field manipulation, no temporal weapons. Yet they achieved victory through simple physics pushed to extreme limits. Defense Minister Kelvoth, a creature that looked like living crystal, added his analysis. Their tactical approach shows no regard for traditional space combat doctrine. They sacrifice elegance for effectiveness, beauty for brutality. It's as if they designed their entire military philosophy around the assumption that every battle would be a fight to the death. The council chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of the holographic projectors. Each member was processing the same horrifying thought. If this was what humanity's exploration vessel could do, what were their actual military ships capable of? Supreme Overlord Kexthara's eyes blazed brighter as she made her decision. This threat cannot be allowed to spread. If other primitive species learn that the Dominion can be defeated, our entire empire could collapse. Deploy the Grand Armada immediately. The other council members nodded in agreement. The Grand Armada represented the combined military might of the entire Dominion. Over 200 capital ships, thousands of fighters, and enough firepower to sterilize entire planets. It had never been defeated in battle. We will make an example of these humans, Kexthara continued. Their entire species will serve as a warning to any other primitives who might dare to challenge Dominion authority. But as the holograms faded, and the communication ended, none of them realized they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. Tiny spy probes, no bigger than insects, slipped through human space like ghosts. The Dominion had perfected stealth technology over millennia, creating surveillance devices that could infiltrate any civilization without being detected. These mechanical spies had mapped the defenses of 1,000 worlds, always finding the same thing: peaceful species with minimal military forces and predictable defensive strategies. But what they found in human space was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Intelligence Officer Velnox stood before the High Council 3 days later, his 6 arms trembling as he prepared to deliver his report. The data his probes had collected was so disturbing that he had triple-checked every piece of information, hoping he had made some terrible mistake. Unfortunately, all the evidence pointed to the same horrifying conclusion. "My lords," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I have completed the intelligence analysis of human civilization. What we discovered defies all previous understanding of primitive species development." Supreme Overlord Kexthara leaned forward, her serpentine form casting shadows across the council chamber. "Speak plainly, Velnox. What makes these humans so different from every other species we have encountered?" Velnox activated the holographic display, and the council chamber filled with images that made several members recoil in shock. The first image showed ancient humans beating each other to death with wooden clubs and stone axes, blood-stained primitive battlefields as early warriors fought over territory, resources, and survival. My lords, humanity's recorded history spans approximately 6,000 years. In that entire time, they have experienced perhaps 50 years of total peace across their entire planet. Every single generation has known war. Every human child grows up hearing stories of conflict, struggle, and survival against impossible odds. The images changed, showing progressively more sophisticated methods of human warfare. Medieval knights in metal armor clashing with swords and spears. Massive armies firing muskets across smoke-filled battlefields. Soldiers huddled in muddy trenches while artillery shells exploded around them. "For they have fought with everything imaginable," Velnox continued, his voice growing more disturbed with each word. "Sticks and stones, bronze and iron, gunpowder and explosives. They have used chemical weapons, biological warfare, and even split the atom itself to create weapons of mass destruction." The final images were the most terrifying. Cities reduced to radioactive ash, fleets of metal warships stretching beyond the horizon, aircraft dropping bombs that could level entire districts. Humans had not just learned to make war, they had perfected it. Science Counselor Mortek's tentacles writhed in agitation. "This is impossible. No species can maintain such a state of constant warfare for millennia. They should have destroyed themselves long ago." "That is what makes them so dangerous, Lord Mortek," Velnox replied. "They have learned to wage total war without committing total extinction. Every conflict teaches them new lessons, makes them stronger, forces them to innovate. Their entire civilization is built around the assumption that someone, somewhere wants to kill them." Defense Minister Kelvoth's crystalline form flickered with concern. "What about their current military capabilities? Surely they cannot maintain such warlike tendencies in the modern era." Velnox's expression grew even more grim. "My lords, their exploration ships carry weapons because they assume any alien contact will be hostile. Their civilian cargo vessels have armor plating. Their space stations are designed to double as military fortresses. Even their children's toys are often miniature weapons or vehicles of war. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Most galactic civilizations developed peaceful space exploration programs once they achieved interstellar travel. Humans had apparently weaponized theirs from the very beginning. Their industrial capacity is perhaps the most frightening aspect, Velnox continued. Every factory, every shipyard, every manufacturing facility is designed with the concept of total war in mind. They can convert their entire economy to military production within months if necessary. Supreme Overlord Kexithara felt something she had not experienced in centuries, genuine fear. How many warships do they currently possess? Velnox looked down at his datapad, his hands shaking slightly. Unknown, my Supreme Overlord. Our probes detected massive orbital shipyards around every human world, and they appear to operate continuously. They never stop building, never stop preparing. It is as if they have been expecting this war their entire existence. The silence that followed was deafening. The darkness of space suddenly erupted with light as 200 massive alien warships dropped out of hyperspace. They appeared at the very edge of our solar system, like deadly metal giants awakening from sleep. This was the Dominion Grand Armada, the combined military power of 12 different alien species, all united under one terrifying banner. Their ships were enormous, dwarfing anything humans had ever built before. Each vessel stretched for kilometers, covered in weapon ports and armor plating that gleamed under the distant light of our sun. These weren't just warships, they were floating cities of destruction, each one capable of wiping out entire planets. Standing on the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Zarkesh gazed out at the human solar system with cold, calculating eyes. His forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the primitive star system before him. To him, this looked like easy prey. Look at this pathetic system, he said to his officers, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had crushed dozens of civilizations before. One small yellow star, a handful of rocky planets spinning around it like toys. These humans picked the wrong species to anger. The Admiral's plan was simple and brutal. He would sweep through the solar system like a cosmic hurricane, destroying everything in his path. Earth would burn first, then the colonies on Mars and the mining stations scattered throughout the asteroid belt. When he was finished, there would be nothing left but debris and radiation. The galaxy would see what happened to species that dared to challenge the Dominion. But then something unexpected happened. The Sensors officer, an insect-like being with multiple eyes, suddenly jerked upright at his station. His compound eyes went wide with shock as data flooded his screens. "Admiral?" the officer said, his voice trembling with disbelief. "I'm picking up contacts throughout the system. Massive ones." "Explain," Zarkesh demanded, turning away from the view screen. "Sir, there are fortified positions built into the asteroids, orbital weapons platforms around every major planet, and Admiral—" The officer paused, double-checking his readings because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "There are over 500 human warships positioned throughout the system, all waiting for us." The bridge fell silent. 500 ships? That was impossible. According to their intelligence, humans had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. They should have been flying around in primitive chemical rockets, not commanding fleets that rivaled the Dominion's own forces. Meanwhile, deep in the solar system on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance, Admiral Kim Tae stood, calmly watching the alien fleet on her tactical display. She had been promoted rapidly after humanity's first contact with the aliens had gone so badly wrong. Now she carried the weight of her entire species on her shoulders. "All ships," she announced over the fleet communication channel, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "This is Admiral Kim. Our uninvited guests have finally arrived. Let's show them some proper human hospitality." Throughout the solar system, human warships powered up their weapons systems. These weren't the crude vessels the aliens expected to find. Every ship in the fleet had been designed specifically for interstellar warfare. They bristled with railguns that could punch through armor plating like paper, missile pods loaded with nuclear warheads, and fusion cannons that burned as hot as stars. Humanity had spent years preparing for this exact moment. After that first disastrous encounter with the Dominion, every human government had united with a single purpose: survival. Factories worked around the clock building weapons. Scientists pushed the boundaries of physics to create new technologies. Soldiers trained endlessly for a war that everyone knew was coming. Now that war had finally arrived at their doorstep, and humanity was ready to fight for their very existence, the first shots of the war lit up space like deadly fireworks. What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. This wasn't just another conquest for the Dominion. This was total war, and humans fought it in a way that shocked even their enemies. The battle revealed something terrifying about human nature. While other species fought to win territories or resources, humans fought as if their very existence hung in the balance, because it did. They knew that losing meant the complete extinction of their species, the death of every human child, parent, and dream that had ever existed. Captain Park Min commanded a small destroyer on the outer edge of the battle. His ship was heavily damaged, engines failing, weapons running low on ammunition. A massive Dominion battlecruiser bore down on his position, its guns charging for a killing blow. Park Min had seconds to make a decision that would define not just his fate, but potentially the outcome of the entire battle. He didn't hesitate. "All power to engines," he ordered his crew. "We're going in." His crew understood immediately. There were no questions, no protests. They had families back on Earth, too. Park Min's destroyer accelerated straight toward the alien battlecruiser, its hull groaning under the stress. The enemy ship tried to turn away, but it was too late. The collision lit up space like a small star. Park Min's final transmission crackled through the static. "Tell my family I did my duty." Both ships were destroyed, but the explosion created a gap in the alien formation that 3 human cruisers immediately exploited. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out again and again. Lieutenant Choi So led a squadron of fighters protecting a medical ship filled with wounded soldiers. When a wing of alien interceptors broke through the main battle line, heading straight for the defenseless hospital ship, she knew her 12 fighters couldn't possibly stop them in a conventional fight. "All pilots, this is Choi So," she transmitted to her squadron. "We're going to do this the hard way." Her fighters turned toward the alien formation and accelerated to maximum speed. They didn't fire their weapons or attempt evasive maneuvers. Instead, they flew straight into the heart of the enemy formation, like ancient kamikaze pilots diving toward enemy carriers. The aliens, caught completely off guard by this suicidal tactic, scattered in confusion. Some tried to shoot down the incoming fighters, but doing so meant breaking formation and losing their attack run on the hospital ship. When the chaos cleared, all 12 human fighters were gone, but so were most of the alien interceptors. The hospital ship escaped to safety, carrying hundreds of wounded soldiers who would live to fight another day. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Zarkesh watched his supposedly superior fleet being torn apart piece by piece. His ships were larger, more advanced, with better weapons and stronger shields. By every measure of military science, the Dominion should have been winning easily, but humans didn't fight like other species. They treated every ship not as a precious resource to be preserved, but as a weapon to be used at exactly the right moment for maximum effect. They spent lives like currency, but they spent them wisely, always ensuring that each sacrifice counted for something greater. "Sir," his aide whispered, his voice shaking as another human cruiser exploded, while taking down 2 Dominion dreadnoughts in the process. "They fight like demons possessed." Zarkesh stared at the tactical display, watching his numerical advantage disappear ship by ship. "No," he replied quietly, finally understanding what they were facing. "They don't fight like demons. They fight like humans. And that might be far more dangerous than anything we've ever encountered." The silence that followed the battle was deafening. Where once the mighty Dominion Grand Armada had filled space with hundreds of warships, now only scattered debris and emergency beacons marked their presence. Of the 200 vessels that had arrived to crush humanity, fewer than 50 limped away from the solar system, their hulls scarred and their crews traumatized. The survivors carried with them stories that would spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Tales of humans who fought with a ferocity that defied all military logic. Stories of ships that turned themselves into weapons, of crews who chose death over defeat, of a species that seemed to treat warfare not as a game of strategy, but as a fight for the very right to exist. News of the defeat traveled faster than the returning ships. Across dozens of star systems, alien civilizations that had bowed to Dominion rule for centuries suddenly began to whisper. If humans could defeat the Grand Armada, what did that mean for the established order? What did it mean for their own chances of freedom? On the Dominion capital world, Supreme Overlord Kexthara received the reports with growing disbelief. Her scaled hands trembled as she read casualty lists that seemed impossible. How could a species that had barely achieved interstellar flight just months ago have destroyed the most powerful military force in known space? The answer came from her surviving admirals, each bearing the same message. Humans didn't fight like any species they had ever encountered. They fought as if every battle was their last, as if surrender wasn't even a concept they understood. Most terrifying of all, they seemed to grow stronger when cornered, more dangerous when desperate. Kexthara realized she had only one choice. Pride meant nothing if her entire civilization was destroyed in the process. Within weeks, her personal transport was heading toward Earth, not carrying invasion plans but peace proposals. The meeting took place on Harmony Station, a gleaming orbital platform that humans had built in Earth's orbit as a symbol of their newfound place in galactic politics. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The species that was supposed to be primitive and backwards was now hosting diplomatic negotiations with the galaxy's former superpower. Admiral Kim Tae sat across the conference table from Kexthara, her expression calm but alert. Around them, the station's viewports showed Earth hanging like a blue jewel against the black of space. It was a reminder of what they had all been fighting for. "We made a terrible mistake," Kexthara began, her serpentine form coiled in what humans had learned was a posture of submission among her species. "We judged your people by our own standards. We thought intelligence meant advanced technology, that civilization meant age and experience." Admiral Kim listened quietly, her hands folded on the table. She had learned long ago that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do in a negotiation was simply let the other side talk. "We underestimated your species completely," the alien leader continued. "Your ships weren't the most advanced. Your weapons weren't the most powerful. Your technology wasn't the most sophisticated, but none of that mattered, did it?" "No, it didn't," Kim replied simply. "We learned something a long time ago on Earth. It's not about being the biggest or the strongest or the smartest. It's about being the one who refuses to give up when everyone else would." Kexthara's alien features showed something that might have been fear. "What do you want from us? What are your terms for peace?" Kim leaned forward slightly. "We want what every species should want. Respect. The right to exist without looking over our shoulders. Fair trade agreements. Open borders for those who come in peace." She paused, her voice taking on a harder edge. "And we want it understood throughout the galaxy that humanity doesn't start conflicts. But when someone brings a fight to our door, we will always finish it." As the Dominion delegation prepared to leave, they carried with them more than just a peace treaty. They carried a new understanding of what it meant to be human. In a galaxy filled with ancient empires and technological marvels, the most dangerous species was the one that had spent thousands of years learning one simple lesson: how to survive against impossible odds. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.